All right, Facebook family. So, with everything going on, it occurred to me that it might be a good idea to kind of, just share a little bit of, I guess, what it's like, to be black in America. For my family out there, my spiritual family, of all races and whatnot. Yeah, it occurred to me a few days ago that it would be a good idea because I think we kind of experience two different realities. If you're white versus if you're black, and I know it's only one reality. I'm not a relativist, so I believe in one reality, but our experiences can be so different in some ways that it makes it hard to really understand um, the other perspective possibly. And it occurred to me that we're seeing that there's a lot of, I guess, pain in the African American community right now around killings. And you know I I can't speak really to a whole lot of that. There's some things that are clearly wrong, in the Arbery murder with the guys calling the guy a nigger. Oh, by the way, that word will be used a couple of times in this video because it's been a part of my life experience. But yeah, with them, using that word in the context of that situation, that's obviously was a factor there. With, we're not sure about all of these incidences. It's a valid statement to say that, we don't always know what is racism. And so this video is not specifically about, the murders that have occurred, recently. This is kind of a separate topic in that sense. Just really to kind of deal with the topic of race in America. Now, those situations have brought it to the forefront, but this video is not specifically about those things, those situations. So I have a few caveats before I get into my life experience. And really, this is kind of what I would recommend for white people who don't really see racism in society or don't see it as significant factor. And I think it is much less of a factor today than it's been years ago. But if you don't, and if you want to understand a little bit better how black people perceive the world, I'm doing the first instance of what I would recommend. I'd say go to, if you have 5 friends who are black, or brothers in Christ, or people who are black, I would recommend maybe sit down with them for lunch, or phone conversation or something. Phone conversation would probably be hard to go through everything, but I would say sit down with 4 or 5 of your black friends and ask them to recount for you all of the encounters they've had with racism in their life. Not to moan in it or be sad or anything like that, but the purpose just being to get a view, kind of a window, a snapshot into their life experience, so that you can kind of understand where they're coming from. Okay. For instance, we talk about things like, Kaepernick kneeling with regard to the flag, and how the perspectives on that can be so diametrically opposed, right? Where it's like, no, you can't kneel for the, kneel for the anthem. It's horrible, and there's all this zeal and passion behind that. And the, I guess, confoundment or the confusion as to how can you not see that putting your hand on your heart is so important, because America is so great, and I agree. I believe America is the greatest country in the world. But, how can you not have the same passion for America that I have? And I think life experiences kind of feed into how America is viewed, by people of different races. So, America hasn't been as good to black people as it's been to white people. And so it's important to understand that our experience, the black experience of America, is not the same experience. And so we're not going to have that type of, we see a lot more of the flaws, the things that need to be fixed and worked on. And so, just so you can understand a little bit more of, where black people are coming from and why they feel the way they do, because people, black people are not illogical, they're intelligent people too. And people feel and believe a certain way because they have reasons for it, okay? So I would say, if you really want to understand where people are coming from, and I'd say sit down, with 3 or 4 of your friends individually who are black, and just have them walk through what they've encountered in their life as a black person, and how it shaped, how it shaped their life. So for me, I'm a light-skinned black person, and that's a factor here, in the sense that I'm going to share my life story as it relates to racially charged encounters. But my life story is probably very mild compared to some of my darker brothers who have had more significant and more frequent encounters that they've had to deal with, because of the tone of their skin, the darkness of their skin. So, when you listen to my life experience, don't think because it sounds extreme to you that it's extreme. My experience is not extreme for black people. I'm a light-skinned person, okay? So what you hear from me, even though as a white person it may sound extreme to you, it's not extreme for black people, okay? So I guess that's most of the caveats. I'm a Christian man first before I'm anything else. So, I praise God for all the progress we've made, in society. We've come a long way from slavery, from civil rights and Jim Crow, from the KKK being dominant. And nowadays, racists are largely marginalized. So, most cops aren't racist. Most white people aren't racist. Most Republicans aren't racist. I'm conservative myself. So anyways, all right, let's move on. All right, so let me see. I guess I'm not even gonna go to the situations my parents dealt with and things like that, because those, that generation can speak to what they went through. I'm a younger guy, relatively speaking. So I guess the first one, and I've had a few basically, but I'd say the first one was probably, I was a lifeguard, and at the pool, and a man his son had lost his pool tag. And so, you know, I believe in following the rules, and I didn't, I wasn't there when his son lost his pool tag, or didn't know if his son lost his pool tag. And the guy was white, his son was white, and, the pool, I guess most people there were black, basically. But anyways, yeah, he came to the pool. I guess this was the next day when I was there, without a pool tag, saying that his son lost his pool tag in the pool previously. And I was like, I'm sorry, I can't let you in without a pool tag. And he's like, but my son, blah blah blah, and he pled his case, but I'm somewhat of a rule follower, and if you don't have a pool tag, you can't get in. So I told him no, and so I guess he went out, walked off, and was mumbling something or whatever, and the kids came up to me and basically told me, hey, he just called you a nigger. So I was just like, okay, whatever, he can say whatever, it doesn't matter, his son's not getting in the pool without a pool tag. So that's just kind of I guess a minor situation where if I'm not doing what someone wants me to do, then all of a sudden the things that they think in their private time, it comes out, right? I'm not staying in line, okay? So then let's see, the next thing probably was college. So I went to school my freshman year, and had a roommate named Chad, which is interesting because my name's Brad, right? So yeah, Chad and Brad, roommates. So first day, get to my room, walk in, and there's a Confederate flag on the wall. A Confederate flag on the wall. So yeah, that was, not particularly appropriate. But, put my stuff in there or whatever. And, I remember walking back, and we were walking, I don't know, the cafeteria with some other guy. I was walking with some other guys, not with my roommate. And they were just kind of like, Brad, if I was you, I would beat his behind. And, I was just kind of like, look, he won a Confederate flag, whatever, as long as he treat me with respect, I'll treat him with respect. We won't have a problem, that's fine. So, over time, eventually I saw that he had like a KKK book, under his chair one day. And, I just basically ignored that. And one day, and I guess this is another instance of that kind of situation, because my roommate was very polite, we didn't, he wasn't, saying impolite things or acting impolite. He was a very polite, young guy or whatever. We were cordial, as roommates, no problems. Until I stepped out of line. So this is kind of like the same thing, that as a lifeguard, you can be cordial and polite to me until I step out of line, right? So we were, like playing cards or something one night. Several of the guys from the dorm, we were playing cards, and we didn't have any music on, and usually we play some music. So since there wasn't anything on, I decided to put some Christian music on. And so he didn't want to listen to the Christian music, right? So he's like arguing, saying, I don't want to listen to Christian music. And so, I'm like, hey, I'll listen to whatever genre you want to listen to. You want to listen to country? I got some Christian country. You want to listen to rap? I got some Christian rap. I'm happy to listen to whatever genre of music you want to listen to, but I'm not gonna not listen to it just because it's Christian. And so he was upset. And, after we got through playing cards, and this was pretty late at night, he starts cursing me out. You blah, 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 you know, dropping bombs on me, curse words, and such, screaming and everything. And so while he's screaming and yelling and cursing me out, um, I'm talking to him in a calm voice like this. And I'm like, Chad, look, I'm not going to stop being a Christian because you don't like it. I'm not going to not do Christian things because you don't like it. And so, I don't return with his volume or with any profanity or any type of aggressiveness at all. And so, he got it out of his system, I guess, screaming and yelling and cursing. And then we went to bed. So the next morning I get up and my alarm goes off and I reach over and hit the alarm and something falls off the bed. And then he's like, what the, did you knock over something? He cursed me out first thing in the morning. And so at this point, I'm getting a little irritated, right? So I kind of grit my teeth and I'm like, Chad, look, you can make living here hard for me and I can make living here hard for you. But I'm trying to get us a little bit more time. And so I'm getting a little hot at this point. And so I get up, I go to shower, I figure out, I'm gonna go, So I'm in the shower and I'm praying in the shower. I'm asking God, Lord, help me not to do something to this guy. I'm like, help me not to do something to this guy. And so I get back out the shower. I come back to the room and I walk in and he says, Brad, we got to change some things around here before I have to decapitate you. So I would like to say that my response to that was Christian. But when a guy with a KKK book and a Confederate flag tells me he's going to decapitate me, that was a bit much for me in that moment. And I don't know if you've seen these cartoons where... you ever seen the cartoons where the character gets mad and then the screen turns red? So that's basically what happened to me in that moment. That's the first time, that's the angriest I've been in my entire life. And that was a moment where I felt very little control over my response at the time. And so I started screaming at him and begging him to hit me. And I felt like I couldn't hit him first as a Christian man. And so I was pleading for him to hit me, to give me an excuse to handle the situation. And I ended up backing him into a corner. And he ended up crouching down to the ground. And I had my nose to his nose. He was in a ball on the ground. And he wasn't going to do anything. And I realized he wasn't going to do anything. He wasn't going to give me the justification. And so my sanity returned to me. And I got up, I leaned up and just left him. After that, I ended up coming back and basically, I'm trying to remember exactly what he said, but it was basically along the lines of an apology or something, or we didn't have any more problems after that. It was back to the most cordial guy, I mean, we didn't hang out a lot together after that, but you know, as far as conflict or encounter, he was nice, he was cordial. We just kind of stayed out of each other's way. Um, so let's see. Um, so since then, let's see what else has happened for me personally. So, oh yeah, so um, not too. Well, I don't know how long ago it was. It wasn't like a super long time ago. Maybe 5, 10 years. Within the last 5 to 10 years ago. Had my wife. We went to IHOP. And fortunately, I walked out first, and my wife, had the kids. She was still on, on her way coming out of the IHOP. Um, but a truck was turning the corner. This is that IHOP over there on 518, and I forget what the cross street is. But truck turned the corner, and they yell out the truck, "You effing nigger!" Just screaming as loud as he could, right, as he was passing by. Okay. I mean, I'm glad my kids, didn't have to hear it. I don't. It wouldn't have been traumatizing. I mean, I just would have explained it to them, but just those types of things. Then I'm trying to remember. Oh yeah, at the neighborhood pool, here. Went swimming. Heard one of the kids basically defending the Confederacy. I guess he was talking to me. I don't know what we were talking about or how it came up or whatever. But it was just kind of random. Little kid. This is not too long ago. I mean, this kid's probably 10 years old now. Talking about the Confederacy and how unjust what happened to the Confederates was, or something along those lines. And it's just kind of like, generation to generation, this stuff being passed on. It's unfortunate. So let's see. I guess those are most of the things that have happened, kind of outside of the corporate environment. There's all the little things, where people look at you suspiciously, things like that, whatever. Regarding work, I remember, one of the jobs, and it's just kind of like, at work, you're not going to get anything dramatic. I mean, everything's going to be subliminal or subtle or, subconscious. People are on their best behavior at work. So if someone doesn't like you because of the color of your skin at work, they're not going to say that. But I remember, I used to be a consultant, and I ended up coming to KBR to work for them, to get off the road because I didn't like being on the road. And so I ended up basically taking a pay cut, because as a consultant I made more money. But KBR made an offer and it was too much of a pay cut, so we negotiated a little bit and they gave a little more, and we came to an agreement or whatever. But yeah, so I came, and then basically when I met my boss's boss for the first time, he looked at me, and then he looked me up and down like, is this the guy we're paying this money for? This guy don't know anything about me. I just walked in the door, and he looking me up and down like I'm not worthy. Like I'm not worthy of what they paid for me. And so, those types of situations, there's not a whole lot you can do about that, right? I'd say in most of my jobs, I've not all of them, but and most of the time, or frequently, probably frequently, not maybe not even most of the time, maybe 50-50. Um, you feel like uh, you got to do more to prove that you're competent, right? So I think there's an unconscious bias where, you when you see a black person, it's not that you believe they're incompetent, but it's that you question it a little bit more until they prove otherwise. And so, I've seen where, some people can walk in a room and they're introduced as the guy for something, and their opinion is immediately respected because they're the guy for that. Whereas I think when a black person walks into the room and they're introduced as the guy for that, there's a tendency to be like, okay, well, maybe he's the guy for that. Let's see. I'll reserve judgment until I get more information. And so, I've kind of felt that in the context of work environments. And, that's also a good reason for me to not really want to stay in the consulting or not going into management roles, is because those are built on trust. And, when you walk in, and it's not just race, right? I mean, we know this. You can look at the studies, like the CEOs of companies are all like 6 feet plus, 6'5", 6'6", and so, even that heightism, I don't know what the term is, if it's heightism or something else, but there is a tendency for people to respect people or to look up to people that are tall or white, or whatever, and so, color's a factor there, and that's one of the main reasons I've chosen to not go down the management path, because once you go down the management path, the only thing you can barter on really for your role is relationship and trust. I mean, you're not, and I preferred to continue to have a technical skill that I can say I can do this technical thing well, and I can justify myself without having to rely on people building a relationship with me as a black man that they're not likely to build at the same level. The bond is not the same, and the trust level will not be the same. And you can say, well, you can build trust with people as they get to know you. And yes, most of my managers, within 6 months of me working for them, they realize I'm competent, I know what I'm doing. But everyone you interact with, they're not all people that know you, especially when you're in a management role. You have to interact with people all around the corporation. And there's always going to be people that you're going to be interfacing with for the first time that don't know you. And if you walk into that room and the tendency is to not trust that you're competent, that's a significant disadvantage for someone trying to function in a role like that. And so I didn't want to put myself in a situation where, where it's hard for me to do my job effectively because there's a tendency, to not trust me because of the color of my skin. Either to not trust, my character, or to not trust my competence. And so yeah, let's see. So jobs, there's another kind of funny incident that happened at work. So one day I was, at work, and I was coming back. I don't know. It might have been like a lunch break, or it might have been the morning. I can't remember the exact time. Um, I think it was lunch though. But yeah, I was coming back, and I was about to get out of my car, go into the office, and I had the door open, um, but there was a song that was playing, and I wanted to hear the end of the song before I got out. And so there's this white person, kind of, I guess they're going into the same building that I'm about to go into once I get out of my car. And they're staring me down like, like I'm doing something wrong or suspicious. He's looking at me. Because I got my door open. So obviously a black guy with a door open in a car, he must be trying to steal a car, right? And so, and so he's like staring me down like, like he's mad at me and I'm doing something bad or wrong or whatever, right? And so, I saw it at first and I'm just like ignoring it or whatever. And I'm like, okay, I'm just going to listen to my song or whatever. And then he just keeps doing it, right? And so, so you can tell that sometimes I've had good reactions and sometimes, at least once so far, not so good reactions to situations. So, in this situation, I was just kind of like, okay, you're going to treat me like a thug. I'm going to act like a thug. I mean, not really like a thug. I didn't do anything extreme, but so I was like, okay. So I closed my door, and then I started walking. I walked over in his direction, right? And so he's like walking, and we're like, crossing the grass to get on the sidewalk. And so I kind of come in like right behind him. And so he was like kind of walking like a little fast or whatever, if I remember correctly, that part. And so I kept the pace with him. So then he started walking slow, like super slow, like you need to walk past me slow. And so I slowed down and I walked slow with him and I stayed right behind him, right? And so he then gets back to like a normal pace or whatever. He like goes into the building. And then he steps back from the elevator, right? And so I'm like, because he hit the button and stepped back. So then I step back, let him walk in first, right? So he walks in, he walks to the back of the elevator and doesn't press a button because, he thinks that I'm trying to follow him in, basically, I guess. And so, so, he's like, like basically pick your floor. And I was like, no, you first. I'm good. So I just sit there and wait. We just gonna sit here and wait in the elevator until somebody picks a floor. And so he picked the third floor, which happened to be the floor that I was on. So this guy is on the same floor as me. And I started to feel a little bad at this point because, he was obviously, a little nervous, I guess. And so we got to the third floor, and I just walked out first, badged myself in, and then went on my way. But it's kind of like those situations where people are treating you like you're a criminal. It can be tempting, to try to get you to behave in a way that probably isn't best. So let's see. I guess that's pretty much all of the situations that I've faced, and just, as I've mentioned on, one of these threads, it's something, Black people are conscious of all the time, right? So, whenever I'm somewhere with, a white person in a situation that might be, I mentioned on the thread, even like in the grocery store, walking behind someone, keeping my distance to make sure that, they don't feel threatened by my presence. Those are things that happen every day, right? Not looking suspicious, not making people feel threatened, and, it's unfortunate, but I think I probably had it pretty good, as the benefit of being lighter skinned, that, people aren't as threatened by me. And so, if you can imagine, just the incidences I've explained from my life, and how on a daily basis, this crosses your mind, just how you're interacting with people, just trying to be conscious of, you know, um, not not making people afraid, basically, or being conscious of the fact that even your career decisions that you make, you have to make it in view of of unconscious bias that people will have, understanding, all of those things. It's it impacts you on a little bit on a daily basis. Just it's not heavy, but it's always there. It's always there. How you're perceived, and it impacts the decisions you make, and the life choices you have. And that's even without getting into the whole, you know, anything about wealth and being built and things like that. This is just your skin color. You know, you can't not be what you are, and you can't, first impressions, how they say, people get their first impression of you within the first few seconds. First impressions are important and all of that. You can't change this first impression. You can't make that not be the first impression. And so, it is what it is, and America is much better than it's been in the past. I mean, we've come a long way. It's unfortunate that even now I can go to the pool and a little kid, is defending the honor of the Confederates and how wrong they were done and things like that. It's unfortunate that parents today are passing that on to their children, but there are fewer and fewer of them doing that, and so that's a blessing. And my experience, I really want to drive this home for my white friends. I'm a light-skinned dude. You can take my experiences and you can multiply that many times for my dark-skinned brothers out there who have experienced a lot more than what I've experienced. And so, this is just a little window into one person's small experience who's somewhat privileged because of the lightness of his skin. And so, when you see that people experience these things, and if you're white, you may have never, come across that, particularly if most of your friends are not racist. So if they're not racist and you don't have to see it because you're white, and so you don't experience it directly, right? So it may just be really confusing, like, where is all this talk of racism coming from? My friends aren't racist, and me as a white guy, I don't see any racism. And so, black people, even if their friends are not racist, they're not going to get away from racism, okay? There's no getting away from it. And so, our perspective on things is a lot different. Our perspective on the police, it was the police sicking dogs on black people, Our perspective on America, it was America that passed laws, to disenfranchise us or, to keep us enslaved. We're going to have a different perspective, and there's validity to it. It's not just irrationality. It's not just black people being irrational. So, I already said that this video is not specifically about the murders that happened. It's not about the riots. But I do want to close in saying I'm against rioting. I'm against, crime. So I'm against murder. And the two are not the same, okay? Unfortunately, some people have taken to the perspective that um, that one thing is just as bad as another, and uh, that view is wrong. It's biblically wrong. Um, when Jesus spoke to Pontius Pilate, uh, and Pontius Pilate says, "I have the power to let you go, or to crucify you." Jesus said, "He who turned me over to you has the greater sin." Greater sin. Greater, do we all know what the word greater means? Greater, larger, bigger, more significant. The greater sin. All sins are not equal. Murder is worse than property damage, stealing. I'm just throwing that out there for free. That's just that's just an add-on. Go ahead and look that scripture up. He who turned me over to you has the greater sin. So let's not make all sin equal, because it's not. All sins are not equal. All right? And murder is something that we should care more deeply about than whether or not a man kneels or puts his hand on his chest for a flag. Can we at least get on the same page there? That the murder of a man is more important than whether or not somebody puts their hand on their chest for an anthem or kneels? Can we say murder is more important than that? I mean, let's get on the same page. But anyways, that was just extra. But yeah, this is just a little window into, a black person's life, a light-skinned black person's life. So, when we talk about, my dark-skinned brothers, they got a lot harder than me. So, so let's try to, let's open our ears. Let's hear other people's life experiences and be informed by them, Black people aren't the only ones who have a hard time, I know, there's heightism, there's, differences in, poor white versus rich white, I understand other people, have challenges too. And we should be sympathetic to those too, all right. So anyways, y'all be blessed. And I hope y'all take me up on this, my white friends. I hope you can go out and in addition to this is my experience, get the experience of some of your other black friends. If you're, if you don't really understand kind of where the anger would come from, or the hurtness, then, get 3 or 4 of your black friends and just have them walk through it with you. What has their life been like? All right, y'all be blessed.